Last night we had a socially distanced Father's Day party with my dad, and we sat in the backyard talking about life, and of course talked about the coronavirus and just lamented the government's, just inability to make a decision, inability to provide direction or guidance in the situation. And I was commenting on how, it'd be good if the government could save up money during good times so that they could just pour it out during these bad times, especially for people who are under economic stress. And my dad mentioned this quote: "A democracy can only exist until the voters discover that they can vote themselves largesse from the public treasury." And my dad couldn't remember who said that quote. He thought maybe it was Alexander Hamilton or Thomas Jefferson, which brought a debate because Ivy had just written a report on both those men. But afterwards, it made me wonder, and so I went to look up who said this quote, only to discover it's attributed to all kinds of people. Ben Franklin, along with Alexander Hamilton and Thomas Jefferson, almost any of the founding fathers. There's a French historian it gets attributed to a lot. But as I dug, I found a great article in The Atlantic that went looking for this quote. And the first time anyone can find it mentioned is in a paper in Oklahoma in the 50s. And that paper says it's a quote from Alexander Fraser Titlier, which they've gone back through all of Titlier's works and can't find the quote. So it may not be that the Oklahoma paper may not be right. But what's interesting about Titlier is he is not one of, democracy's founding fathers. He's not even pro-democracy. He was a Scotsman in the 1700s and thought the democracy experiment was crazy. He was a total critic of democracy, expecting it to fail, which changes the quote a little bit when you realize it's coming from an outsider, even a critic, hoping that the experiment fails. But this is the way of the internet, because here's what's going to happen. Even if this news got spread all over the place that this quote has been misattributed, in a few years, people attribute it to Ben Franklin again, and then Alexander Hamilton, and probably throw in George Washington for good measure. And it'll get passed around because the internet is constantly cycling ideas and pulling us one direction or another. Yesterday in the message, we talked about having a singular focus. If your eyes are healthy, Matthew 6:22 says, then you'll be full of light. Interesting, the word healthy doesn't mean healthy. It means soul or single. If your eyes have one focus, and of course, being the Sermon on the Mount, that one focus is Jesus. And as we move forward, whether it is with coronavirus or with all of the racial tension or just in our own family life, how do we parent? We need to have one focus, Jesus. How can we be more like the gospel story of resurrection and sacrifice, of grace and of love and of salvation? So I challenge you as you move out into life to have that sole focus of God's grace.